What up, what up? It's your boy Marco from Upside Down Studios. It is What the Fuck Wednesday. I'm joined in the house by motherfucking Big Shiz.
What up?
And we got Greg on the twos and threes.
What up, y'all?
And look, see, I mirrored my image. Now we can point to the right fucking folks. How everybody doing?
Mirror my image, because it's all fuckered up for me.
And that's on Greg. You pointing at Greg now.
I know. I got to look at the monitor. I shouldn't have, like, this is all fuckered up. The monitor's over there. The camera's here.
I've been in the studio. I know.
I got to pay attention to you. Then I got to talk. Then I got to pay attention to you. Then I got to talk.
Oh, it's such a difficult life.
Fucking
How everybody doing?
Dying.
Greg's over there dying. Shit.
Yeah, notice that I hit the blunt and Greg started choking. That's how we mind. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, we got any new business, any old business, Greg? Before we start this shit off.
Not really, no.
Nope.
Nothing going on.
Well,
Studio
grab
wise,
your handicap sticker and let's go for a ride.
All right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now we got all conflicting opinions here, but ultimately, we are fucking under attack. Now you can believe it or not, you could just call it a whole bunch of fucking coincidence or whatever the fuck. But there's just way too much shit been happening way before the beginning of the fucking new year. You know, I've been talking to ever since they started all these fucking terrorists, and they are terrorist attacks on our power grid. You know, I think there's been 6. Well, nobody's talking about them now because now we got all these fucking biohazardous weapons getting hit on now. But I'm sure there's been more. But our power grid's been being attacked. Our airspace is being invaded. We're getting hit by bioweapons, and you know, it's just business as usual. All these things happen. Yeah, we do have train derailments every once in a while, but we don't have fucking 3 in 4 days. We don't have four biohazardous fucking weapons. It might as well be, you know, just all over the environment in 4 days. You know, and Jared went down and he went down to a town hall, well, was supposed to be a town hall meeting, and they pretty much flipped the script on the people, which was fucking, you know, we knew that shit was going to happen. But we're going to have a report on him with the whole East Palestine thing because that's the closest to us for the bioweapon. But we just today, a fatal accident of a trucker full of fucking hazardous chemicals. That was, I believe, in South Carolina. In Texas, there was a train derailment with more biohazardous waste. And there was another. Do you remember where the other train was at, Jared?
No, I want to. No, not off the top of my head. Believe me, my head's still kind of swirling from all of this tonight. So, but I want to say it was out west more.
Yeah,
farther out west.
Yeah, so we got invasion of airspace. First, it was the balloon, and then
I didn't hear anything about the today thing you were talking about.
The truck. Yeah, the truck that just fucking. Yeah.
No. The MiGs.
Oh, yeah. And also in Alaska, you know, our fucking NORAD, our fucking jets intercepted 2 Russian I call them MiGs, but they're actually not MiGs. MiGs is an old term for their old jets, but they're newer jets, but they're fighter jets flying over fucking Alaska.
Right, I get what you're saying.
So, you know, and then, you know, people think, well, all right, well, yeah, we got this little conflict going on with China that's always been there. And we got this conflict going on with Russia and with the Ukrainian over there. But I think it might go a little deeper than that. I mean, we're just, for my conspiracy people and shit, you know, and I was telling the guys this earlier. You know, when Trump was in office, he started Space Force. Now, we already had people in the know of the conspiracy world know we always had a Space Force. But Trump put it out there in the open. Now, everybody said, why? Why do we need a Space Force? What the fuck do we need a Space Force for? And everybody made fun of Trump. You know, oh, we don't need this Space Force. Now, Trump is gone. Trump is gone. But every time they talk about defunding military or cutting back on military, nobody ever says dick about the Space Force. Nothing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
to be fair though, how much of the military budget does the Space Force take up?
they
I don't
take
know that
just
information.
they're take up just they're a branch of the fucking military.
Yeah,
If
but
anything, they would take up a bigger chunk because their fucking equipment is more. You can't fly a fucking F-15 into the fucking space, supposedly. We don't know anymore.
Yeah, but to be perfectly honest though, just to be perfectly fucking honest, that is your opinion. You are assuming that their stuff is more expensive than they have. You don't know this for a fact. You don't know what the actual
Just compare
numbers
the
are.
price of a space shuttle to the price of a MiG.
That's not how government budgets work, bro. Like what? Okay, so what if one of their vessels costs like it doesn't cost like more than fucking 4 aircraft carriers?
I never know.
So,
I mean, we don't know the
like,
size of the vehicles or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know. That's what I'm saying. We don't know. We need that information before we can actually talk about that. Is it something that needs to be investigated? Yes.
Well,
is it something that we know what we're talking about right now? No. It's a stab in the dark.
My point of the whole matter is they're there. They're not getting defended. They're not getting talked about. And all of a sudden now, I mean, and Trump was the one who pushed for the whole UFO disclosure. He pushed for everything to be let out, even though our government is still trying to ninny, we'll drop you little tidbits here and there. And now all this is coming about. Aldrin already said last time he was down in Antarctica when they found whatever the fuck they found down there, we needed to get off the fucking, get off Earth. Gates has said we need to get off Earth. Elon Musk has said we need to get off Earth. Something is going on, and I'm not quite sure if it's human aggression, if you want to call it that. Now, we play devil's advocate, though. It's been talked about for quite some time, a real long time, about Project Bluebeam and how the false flag was going to, in case shit in the government got sloppy and shit hit the fan, then all of a sudden UFOs were supposed to pop up, and that was supposed to bind everybody together and make them forget about everything. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple at all, because really, we know about the UFOs and people don't give a fuck. People don't go, at least the people that should be giving a fuck don't really give a fuck, or they ain't acting like it. And if so, then they sure as fuck ain't letting us know about it. And then all of a sudden, we got all this shit. We got all these aggressions coming from everywhere. Let's take our guns. No, something ain't right. Something ain't right. This is a fucking attack. This is an act of war. From whatever direction it's fucking coming from.
Okay, but do me a favor. Here's what I need you to tie together for me, though, to make all of that make sense, though, bro. This is what we need to tie together. We need to tie together. You talked about our power grid getting attacked. Who attacked our power grid?
They're not a group of folks. At least they're not trying to say it's a group of folks. They're trying to say they're individual people, but they are calling them terrorist acts.
Okay. But regardless, it was a specific group of people that did that attack, correct?
Supposedly.
Okay, so we'll call that Group A. Now, we talked about
China. Wait a second. Hold that thought. To answer your question earlier on Space Force, the budget for Space Force, breakdown of Space Force, $24.5 billion budget.
Okay, I'm not saying it's not a lot. What I'm saying is now, what's the Navy's budget?
All right, let's see.
And I'm not saying
that's higher than I thought it was. Shit.
I'm not saying that there's anything like that they don't get more, or that I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm saying we don't know the information. Let's get. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious.
$220 billion for the Navy.
Okay. That's a huge difference. What's the Army?
Well, let me make sure this isn't the whole combined. No, that's just Navy. Okay. Look. Army budget 2020. We'll go last year's the budget for last year.
Yeah.
Army's budget is way low, 173.
Okay. What's Marines? I'm not surprised the Navy budget's probably going to be the highest with the amount of ships, the amount of fuel, the amount of
Marines
aircraft.
the Marines is 50.3, and it's only 50.3, and
They rely on the Navy. They rely on the Navy quite a bit.
Oh yeah, most of the world is water.
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard probably got like $1,000.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the Coast Guard actually gets a good amount of money. Just remember what they're tasked with. Remember, they also operate inland. You go to one.
13.8.
How much?
13.8 billion.
Wow, I thought they would get more. Okay.
Yeah, and that was actually that's the budget request.
Okay. Is that an increase or a budget request?
That's the budget request. Their actual budget is 11.54.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck about our borders, man.
What's the Air Force?
See, the Air Force is the one to watch. That I would think it would have the more expensive equipment.
No, dude, you got to the infrastructure alone for the Navy. The Navy owns more aircraft than the Army and the Marines and the Air Force combined.
Air Force is 234.12 billion.
Wow. So that Space Force that's not getting talked about being defunded gets not much more than the Coast Guard, but is at least $100 billion less than the next closest military service.
Right.
So there's probably more than just a conspiracy reason that they're not talking about defunding them, because there's probably less fat in a $24.5 billion budget than there is in a $220 billion budget.
Yeah, but when they loop it together, it doesn't ever, at least in none of the Senate hearings that I've watched, when they loop it together, it is not the Air Force budget. It's not the naval budget.
You're right. You're right. But how do you think they get the military budget? It's the sum of the parts. It's not just a separate number. They add all these budgets together and whatever other projects that they are tasked with that are just not these 5 things. You know what I mean? They add all it together, and then that's the money they ask for. This is just the itemized lines of who's getting that portion, who's getting what portion of the money. So there's less fat to trim out of a $24.5 billion budget than there is out of the Air Force's 234 or the Navy's 220.
Which you're not understanding what I'm saying is when they go and when you get like these AOCs or these mad libtards out there, when they say cut from the military, they always have a specific they don't know what these numbers are. I can guarantee half the Senate don't know what these fucking numbers are. We probably know more than these idiots that are talking about that as far as these budget numbers on that end.
I want,
like, let's take away from
specifics.
this.
You need to give me a specific. Like, if you're going to claim specifics, you need to have not just what all these libtards, what they attack, what specifically did they attack?
It's always take away from the military. We don't need.
Okay,
we don't need
but you're saying
so many planes. We don't need so many boats.
Okay,
nobody says we don't need no fucking space shuttles.
They're not saying we don't need a Navy. They're saying maybe we don't need as much of the budget to go to the Navy for extra bullshit. They're not saying we don't need a Navy at all.
You're not understing what I'm saying. I'm saying
yes, you're just not willing to admit you're not looking at it right. You're not willing to admit that you might not. You're not willing to admit that you are not looking at it right. You are again still going into this looking for an argument and looking to have a voice, but not looking for a fact. Because your line of logic doesn't even make sense.
My line of logic is just stating the facts that Everybody takes from the Navy. Everybody takes from the fucking Air Force. They take from the fucking Army. They take from the Marines. But nobody takes from the fucking Space Force. And whether the money is just lowering the amount or not, that's kind of fucking odd because now we got all this space shit going on.
It's not odd. It's not that they don't want to take away from it. Again, there's more
They said
fluff.
that we didn't even need it. The Democrats said...
All they did, I don't care what the Democrats said. All they did for the Space Force was they took what the fucking Air Force was already fucking doing and gave it its own fucking department. They took a specialized unit of the fucking Air Force. They hardly had to create a new fucking service. They literally just rebranded. They just rebranded a section of the Air Force and gave them a specialty, so that they focus on those things instead of being caught up and wrapped up in the other things as well. Now, I'm not saying that the creation of the Space Force and this shit isn't, that there's not something there. But what I'm saying is just because they're not specifically saying, hey, let's trim the budget of the second lowest branch of the military, well, why don't we trim the budget of the ones that are absolutely definitely overspending, like that even an idiot can Google and see that we're overspending.
The Space Force doesn't get mentioned at all, period.
When do they mention the Coast Guard?
No.
Okay.
Actually, no, I take it back. Lately, with the whole Mayorkas shit that's been going on, yes, the Coast Guard has been talked about. My fault.
But have they been talked about in the budget context that we're talking about now?
Not in the context that we're talking about.
Okay, then that's what we're talking about, and that's all that's relevant right now. Just because somebody says Coast Guard, we're talking about budget and trimming budget, and I'm comparing that to your conspiracy theory on the Space Force. So, since if your theory holds true, then since they're not asking to trim from the Coast Guard, then we better be worried about the attack that's coming from beneath, at our border beneath us too.
And it's happening.
Well, then talk about it, bro.
I've been talking about it. You see the invasion from the illegals on the bottom end. And the reason why I said that it was very rare that you do hear about the Coast Guard, but you have heard about the Coast Guard lately with DHS and Mayorkas because they're going to impeach Mayorkas.
Right, that you're going to hear about it, but you're not going to hear. You're not hearing about them trying to cut their budget.
No, they're actually trying to defund them. They're trying to defund DHS and all that shit down around the border at the military presence and all that shit. So defunding is the same thing as budget. Mayorkas is asking for more money. El Paso is asking for more money. Texas and them said, no, we don't want your fucking money. Just let's build our fucking wall.
Right. Now that we broke off of that, let's break back to this how you went from Group A attacked our power grid to the China balloon to these other balloons to these aliens to our guns being taken away. I want to know, because you said it's all there, it's all related. Wait a second.
I feel like they are.
So wait a second though. So which one of those groups that you said is attacking the United States is trying to take our guns? Is it Group A that attacked the power grid? Is it China with their balloon?
Our government is taking our guns away.
Okay, our
government. And it's like they see our government
Okay, no, that's the answer. Our government. Okay, all right. So what you're saying is we're under attack by more than one person.
I think we're under attack, yeah.
So all of these, the derailments and everything, are all attacks.
I feel like it, yeah.
They're all acts of war from various groups. And at the same time, our government's attacking.
I feel like there's a head group, and I feel like our government is not attacking us. Our government is giving us, or lacking, giving us the ability to defend ourselves.
Because I agree with you, and by pointing this stuff out, I'm not saying that you're wrong on any one specific thing. Okay, I'm not. What I'm saying is that even though you might be right on each of those specific things in that list, that not necessarily every single one of them is a directly related, coordinated attack by those individual powers getting together and hatching a plan, which is what you said was happening, which is exactly what you said.
I feel like it is. but that doesn't mean it is. I'm just saying that there's way too many fucking. You got you a pocket full of fucking nickels. Your shit's jingling. You know what I'm saying? You can't just.
But if I've got a pocket full of change, with some nickels, some dimes, some quarters, my pocket still jingles, motherfucker. They ain't related, but they jingle.
But they're all buying the same war.
I disagree with you on the derailments, and I'll get into more on that as I dig more of this out. I think the derailment is more of a corporate, more of a rich poor, more of a money thing than an actual terrorist.
You're thinking it's like what was that pipeline down in New Mexico that was a corporate? They found out that the corporation actually just fucking let that shit.
What you have to realize is there's money to be made from accidents, and I don't just mean from cleanup. I mean from these companies. They insure the fuck out of everything. So it's like insuring. It's like getting homeowners or renters insurance, right? And insuring everything in your house for the absolute max fucking value of that particular item, even though yours isn't. You catch my drift?
Right.
Like you're saying you got an LG, but you got
Yeah, that's what they try to say. Trump did
out of Taiwan, and so what they do is they let their infrastructures go to shit. They let their equipment go to shit. They let their workers go to shit. They let all this stuff happen with all this insurance money hanging up there. Then, boom, something happens. Yeah, they get a slap on the wrist from the EPA. Yeah, the government fucking slaps them. Yeah, they got to pay some cleanup and some. They got to throw some money in the community. But then you got to look at how much money they're going to get from all those insurance and actuary companies. And that's just one way they make money that way.
I totally agree. Like if if none of the other shit happened, I would be totally on board. That's because that's the most logical fucking thing to go with it. But man, you got this one and you got two other ones, and they're all hazardous materials.
Bro,
magically,
I don't.
None of these companies have anything.
It's not magically. It's not magically that it's these materials. You have to realize the volume of these materials that are transported by rail throughout the United States daily. So it's just like if there's 4 billion Toyota Corollas on the planet and there's 1 billion Honda Accords, which one do you think is going to get in more accidents? There's going to be more accidents involving a Toyota Corolla than a Honda Accord. So there's going to be like the percentages of things happening.
The way I look at it is like this. Maybe this will clarify the thinking of it is. All right, anybody can win the lottery, correct? Even though the odds are like one, I don't know how many million. Anybody can win the lottery, right?
Right.
Now, if you won the lottery today, and then you won the lottery tomorrow, and then you won the lottery after that, and 4 days in a row you won that motherfucking lottery, somebody's gonna be looking at it.
Sure. And what I'm saying is these companies like the railroad company, yeah, I'm not saying they didn't rig it. I'm just saying it's not for an act of war. It's for an act of profiteering. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that this just was an actual true accident. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is it's not lining up with what you said at the beginning of the show, that this falls into the category of an act of war. This is an act of profiteering.
Even if this was done by a corporation here in America, by an American company, by the company that owns it, technically that is an act of war. You unleashed a biohazard weapon on a town.
Okay,
I'm not
debating. I'm not debating that it's couldn't be considered a war crime. What I'm saying is one of the conditions of an act of war is there has to be intent to start the war. Like, that's not what the intent was here. Is it an act of terrorism? Yes, but an act of terrorism isn't necessarily an act of war. Eco-terrorism's been around for a very long time, and it's always been to get a message. Now, I'm not agreeing with it, but I'm saying it's to get a message across, not to start an armed conflict.
Yeah, but
That's not an
this
act
is
of
a
war.
whole
It is an act of
scouting
terrorism, but it is not an act of war.
When does
This
it switch
company's
over?
not trying. These companies aren't trying to start a fucking armed conflict with us, dude. They're not trying to start a war. But they sure as fuck don't mind. We're expendable to them. They don't mind sacrificing us for them to gain more. That is the truth. It's not coincidental at all that it came just after all the labor disputes and all the bullshit with the railroads. That's not coincidental at all.
It throws it all in there, man.
Right. I'm just saying the derailments seem to be more money based than war based. The other shit, now I'm not disagreeing with you on the other shit. But
So what'd you
it's not
find out when
all-
you went down to the
it's-
town hall?
What I'm saying is there's a bunch of conspiracies going on at one time, not just like
Right.
all these different entities. They're all doing their own thing because they all want like they want their own.
I mean, because even on the other end, you know, if you just take out the whole act of war thing, then you got the cover up shit, like you were talking about with the fucking dude from the 9/11 towers getting released. The Epstein fucking list is supposed to be being released. Um, they're finding all kind of other bullshit out about fucking Biden and Hunter. So there's a lot of cover up that could be attributed to also.
Yeah,
mean-
I think it's.
But again,
it very easily could
some
be.
facts. What did you find out down at that thing?
Dick.
Yeah, he found a piece of paper.
Right. Here's what happened. So it was supposed to be
Fucked up.
a town hall, which is where you put your name on a list and you get X amount of time to step up, ask your question, and get responses. And then have more question and answer within your allotted time, and a bunch of different people get to do that. Well, they changed it. So it became an open house, which if you remember school, you remember what an open house is, right? There literally was just a shitload of foldable tables wrapped around the gym floor with a person or two standing behind them. They all had an easel with like their papers on them and different things highlighted to get your attention. And then copies were available for you to take home. Questions were basically like there wasn't a lot of questions answered. There weren't a lot of answers. Every table would basically give the answer that's in the nice packet that they gave explaining everything. It is the derailment air monitoring, like frequently asked questions, a little bit about water, but everything's very like.
So what were the exact chemicals that are being released? Because I mean, even up till today, they're talking about there's finding more different chemicals.
Which I'll get to that in a second. But on the list is vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide. I think this just repeats. Phosgene, mineral acids. Nope, that's testing equipment. Those got funny names too. But like honestly, this is some pretty bad shit. Phosgene was a chemical weapon that they used during World War I to gas soldiers in trenches. The thing about phosgene is the reason they use it for trenches because it's heavier than air, so it sinks. So it would sink into the trenches. It would hang down in the trenches. They're monitoring air quality. My question was, are they monitoring the air in the storm sewers?
I'm sure they're not, dude. People are bitching all over the internet about their animals are just fucking dying.
East Palestine. On that question, East Palestine, the people at the East Palestine table told me that they would, that I would have to ask the Ohio EPA that question because they were handling the monitoring. So then I started asking them about water, And they showed me on a map where their well fields were. We talked about their well construction. People that are new to this, I spent a very long time as a groundwater contractor. I was the youngest licensed well driller in the state I worked in at the time. Master groundwater contractor. So I know a lot about groundwater. I know a lot about the aquifers. I know how hydrology works and all that stuff. And so we talked about their how deep their wells are, well construction, this, that, the other thing. And we looked on it. He showed me on a map where the derailment was and where their drinking water wells are for the municipality. And their wells are a little north and west of the site. So they're out of any kind of contamination danger, even pretty much future contamination, because water doesn't migrate that way. You know what I mean? So
What about the rain?
But when it rains, it's not going to run that direction. When it sinks into the ground,
the water cycle when the fucking that
no. When rainwater sinks into the ground, water still only then migrates south. So it's not going to naturally go that way for any reason. But so I asked about areas to the south, and he said, "Well, for that information, you're going to have to I'm going to have to direct that question to the EPA." So I was like, "Okay, thanks for your time." I went over to talk to the EPA. Ohio EPA told me I had to talk to federal EPA. Federal EPA told me I had to talk to Ohio EPA. So I went back to East Palestine guy and I said, "Hey, these both told me I had to talk to the other one. What's going on?" And he said, "Well, here's the honest truth is the reason that they haven't published anything about it yet, the reason that they haven't, and the reason they're not answering your questions is because the state EPA and the federal EPA, their scientists and all their people, they can't fucking agree on what the future fallout possibly could be. They can't agree on the possibility of groundwater contamination, where it might go, where it might matriculate to, and all that stuff. They're in complete disagreement. They're fighting about it, and so they won't release a statement."
So they just don't fucking know.
So this is what everybody got that showed up, even the local residents, instead of the opportunity to have their voice heard. The other thing it did, it took away the opportunity to ask a question and gauge a response. Even if you're going to get a canned response that somebody's reading, you can tell a lot by body language and reaction.
Right.
The other thing it did was they said, "Well, we answer all your questions here with the frequently asked question sheet." Give you an example. How long will the EPA continue air monitoring? EPA will continue community air monitoring until the emergency response is over. Now, if it was a town hall, we'd be able to go, "Well, what's the time limit on that?" Or if there's no time limit, what's the criteria for when the emergency response is over? Like, you know what I mean? Nobody gets that opportunity anymore.
Wait a second. 4 minutes late. Moment of silence.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
That-
Well, here's a question for you, Jared, because I'm surprised this hasn't like passed through your mind. You got that list of chemicals there. You ever try punching it in to see what those are ingredients to?
Yeah, I have. I've done a little bit of research on them. But my other question that I said we get back to, you said, about them, they're still finding out new stuff. Here's the thing about that. Marco, you've worked in different industries where you would have chemicals in shops and different things, right? Greg, you've not only worked in it, you've owned businesses. I've done that kind of work as well. What would happen if the EPA did an inspection on one of those businesses and they didn't have the chemical breakdown and MSDS sheet for every single chemical on site?
Dude, that's a must. There isn't like you don't have. That's a must.
Now, not only that, I don't know if anybody out there watching or you guys have any kind of experience with shipping on that scale. like anything that is shipped in the United States, anything that is put in motion, whether it is on a boat, whether it is on a train, whether it is on a truck, in a car, a van, if it is cargo, there is a manifest of what it is. And every checkpoint it goes through, every time it gets handed off, especially like if you're talking in the rail industry, every time they add a car, take a car, unload, reload, there's always new, the manifest is always updated. There's always a manifest.
Right, there's always a log of it.
There's always an MSDS sheet. So, how are they finding new chemicals if, like, they're the ones that put them in the motherfucking thing? They're not finding new chemicals. What's happening is people are finding out what other chemicals that they weren't talking about, and now they've got to admit that those fucking chemicals are there. They knew they were there. They knew they were there when they fucking loaded them. They still know what is there that they haven't admitted is there yet.
It's an act of war, a biological weapon, and a lot of people are going to get paid on it.
I still think it's an act of profit, and they just don't give a fuck about life. I don't really think they're like mad scientists, and this isn't fucking some Batman thing where they're hatching this. Their only plot is money, and they just don't give a fuck about the fallout. I don't think the fallout is what they... What's the word I'm looking for? That's not what their end game is. The end game isn't the poisoning of people. The end game is the profit. The poisoning of the people, they just don't give a fuck about. When it's an act of war, the point is poisoning the people. That's the difference. The intent, the end game. It's
it wouldn't be the first time our government
No.
or a corporation in our country hasn't, ran some game on some people.
Fucking Flint.
Fucking Lyme disease. Lyme disease was made on a I forget what island it was, and they were fucking injecting ticks with Lyme disease because they were going to use them for fighting in the litter box, and they flew over in the fucking wind current. They were the Lyme disease is named after the town that the fucking disease hit first.
Yeah, but dude, just for profit, not even like some bioengineering thing gone wrong. Like that was still an intent of some sort of creating that. They were going to use it on somebody else, but it backfired, right? Like just in corporate bullshit. Like we just said Flint. I don't know if anybody remembers that like, back in the 70s, but Love Canal, Niagara Falls, New York. The town was decimated by toxic waste being dumped in their water system. 3 Mile Island. Hinckley, California.
It's a fucking Montauk.
Maryland, when I was a well driller in Maryland, before I was a well driller, there was an accident where radium's a byproduct. Damn it, I'm going to forget now. Radium was the byproduct of whatever, something like this. An accident that happened. They did this, the chemical, these chemicals, they break down into formaldehyde and other things. Well, radium is a byproduct of what these other chemicals were. Radium is radioactive. Radium leached down into the water supply, and it contaminated the top level aquifers. So literally overnight, the health department had to make a decision, and they decided that you had to now drill wells that were past the contaminated zone into the deeper aquifer, and they had to be constructed a certain way, which is it's a very difficult and painstaking process because it has to be all one piece. Like the casing has to be connected all the way, and it has to be a continual grout, which is the sealant that goes between the pipe that comes out of the ground and the walls of the hole. That has to be a continuous seal from the very bottom gravel pack all the way to the surface. wells in that area used to be anywhere from, well, once upon a time, 20, 25 feet up into the 40-foot range. Those radium wells were now over 1,000 feet. Wells went from being $3,000 to $4,000 to being $15,000. And not to mention all the radiation that people were exposed to before they made the decision to do that, because they were covering it up. They didn't say that this could happen.
And overnight, Bruce Banner became the Incredible Hulk.
And so that is the possibility you have from this type of wreck. It's not going to contaminate East Palestine's water, but you got to look at the areas south.
Surrounding, yeah. Or
For
dude,
water,
and I'm still,
for air.
you know,
My expertise isn't in air. I know very little. I know some basics because when I worked in the oil field, you had to monitor for certain gases and stuff on site all the time. So, I mean, I know a little bit about the equipment. I know a little bit, but I don't know. Like water, I know about. So that's why my focus was trying to get answers on something I knew about so I could tell if I was being bullshitted or not. And I was getting all kinds of...
Did they say anything about any kind of radiation or anything? Did they check any parts per million in the soil?
I do not have soil samples. Soil sample information here. All I have is water. But I have soil sample results requested, and I should have those in my email tomorrow. But I'm sure they're also available online. But I hooked up.
That shit was irradiated.
Right. I haven't heard anybody talking about that per se. But what, what I have heard, or what my concern is like we were talking about, they already know what's in there. We don't. They did this burn off supposedly to, protect from an explosion. But
yeah. Did you see what that so-called what is it?
There are things that can, all evidence of them can be burned off.
I don't think that was a good idea to have that shit burned off.
So using that as a ploy, here they go getting rid of something extremely heinous that we know nothing about, and they're able to cover it up with a controlled burn. There's all these possibilities as well.
Yeah,
and since you don't get the opportunity to voice your concern and get a response, all they leave us to believe is they are covering something up. I will tell you, of the hundreds of people that were there, the vast majority is not buying any of the bullshit that they're being told.
Imagine that.
Everybody, the people are skeptical, and the town was packed. The school was packed. The line came out of the gym doorways, and it went both, like the sidewalk. It went both ways on the sidewalk. It went past the school on both ways on the side, and like down 2 or 3 blocks while we were waiting to get in.
Oh, Lord forbid they start cooking meth down there, man. Jesus, somebody's gonna blow up for real.
I'm pretty sure they already do.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Somebody down there does.
I didn't see 4 people got arrested already because they were too close to the train tracks or wherever the fuck the derailment was. And they said because they crossed some kind of safety line, they were literally arrested. Like, they didn't get told to get back. They didn't get told to, they got fucking arrested.
Bro, one time
if you have a line that says do not cross, and you
they went through, like, because it's a big fucking area.
Right. But regardless, to be that close, they at least had to be on railroad property.
Yeah.
And if you're not cleared to be there, you're trespassing.
Right.
I worked on a job when I was pipelining. We were doing a road bore underneath the road for the pipeline to run. And our drill bit got stuck. And when we were trying to pull back, the drill rod snapped. Well, it was halfway under the road. The only way to retrieve it was somebody had to climb through that road bore and hook a chain up to it. Well, we were told we weren't allowed to do it because it wasn't safe. So when we shut down for the day, we went back to the hotel. It got to be dark. We went out to dinner. We get back from dinner, and the boss goes, "Hey, man, come here. Turn around." I turned around, and he grabbed a tape measure, and he measured me from shoulder to shoulder. And he goes, "He'll fit." He goes, okay, we're going to go back to the job site. And you're going to shimmy in that pipe and you're going to hook this chain up. And I was like, okay. So I did it. We got the bit out. We set it by the equipment and we fucking left. Act like we hadn't been there. We show up to the site the next morning. My boss turns the corner and he looks at me. He throws me his keys to his pickup truck and he goes, man, you need to get the fuck out of here. You need to go down to well 49. I was like, why? He goes, they are pissed. He goes, the fucking cops are on their way. They swear if they find out who the fuck it was that went inside that pipe, they're getting fucking arrested tonight. They're getting arrested today. He's like, get the fuck out of here.
I'm like, yo no hablando. Vacation, siesta.
Trespassing. Yeah. Like, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, man, it's just for me, it's just too many coincidences. I don't know who's doing it, but it's being done. Or we could just be getting attacked from all ends. You know, people see we're weak.
I think there's a lot of things going on, and I think it's more than just. It's not that. I think a couple things are happening. We know more now, and we are privy to more information now than we ever have been. I do think there's more going on, but I think we also now know about things. You know what I mean? It's like twofold. But I also think that like stuff like this derailment and whatnot are things that have been going on for a very long time in our history. And I think that's just continuing. I do think other things are actual attacks on us. I don't think all of them are directly related, but they all take a toll. They all take a toll.
Yep, it's just one Jenga brick out of the fucking stack, man.
And these corporations that do this stuff like these railroads, they've got both Democrats and Republicans in their pocket. They've got unions in their pocket. They've got the regulatory people in their pocket. I mean, we're talking like billions and billions of dollars a year. Look up Norfolk Southern's profit for last year. It'll kill you.
I believe
they're running it over a 50% profit margin.
What am I looking at profits for last year?
Yeah, Norfolk Southern.
From railroad operations, 4.8 billion, up 8%. 362 million year over year. The annual record diluted earnings per share are $13.88. That ain't very much, man.
There's a lot of shares.
Yeah, but those shares are down. See, now that right there makes me think that maybe this was an insurance job. Profits are down. They need some fucking. They need some.
Profits aren't down. Profits aren't down. Stock price might be down, but profits aren't down.
That's what I meant.
And you can engineer stock prices.
Yeah, with a big accident.
And why if somebody wants to make a play for a company that's making almost $5 billion a year, why wouldn't they want to drive stock prices down? They can buy up more shares, ride out the storm on a company that their price might be down, but their profits are up. You're not going to lose in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, you playing the long game.
The company you need to pay attention to is Vanguard. Vanguard owns they are the largest shareholder of every major railroad in the United States. That's the company you need to pay attention to on these things. They are the major shareholder in every railroad that has had a derailment.
Well, who owns Vanguard? And you find out where our fucking attack came from.
This is the trail that like I said, all I have right now, I just have information. I have a shitload of information. I do not have any conclusions.
So we got Vanguard Group, we got Vanguard University, Vanguard.
It's not university.
We got Vanguard Norfolk Southern. Let's check that out. Fund overview, stable value, stock funds, Vanguard funds. They're just saying it's a fund. What are Vanguard's fees?
Okay, they're the main. They're the largest investor. Let's put it that way.
See, this is sounding shady. I want to know where these people are from. I want to know who owns Vanguard because
Right?
that's
See,
where
we
we
got to
get
keep
taxed.
drilling down. We
Yep.
got to keep drilling down.
I'm wondering
Every
if they
time-
got any ties to Blackwater.
Every time I have a question, and I go look for the answer, I get my answer, but then I get,
More questions.
yep. That's how this is going. That's how this shit goes. You just got to keep drilling down until you hit it.
Well, we about hit the 5-6 minutes mark, 8-minute mark, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
We're gonna end on that. We're gonna do a little bit more digging into this because now he got me wanting to find out who the fuck Vanguard is, and I want to see if they got anything to do with any trucking companies and maybe some
I haven't looked into that yet.
maybe some balloons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With that being said, it's been What the Fuck Wednesday. Thank God for coming out and listening to us. Make sure you check out Vinyl Thursday, S&G, what reacts on
Yep.
Friday, and Muck and Fun Day on Mondays. And we out.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.